again, while we did have a short-term boom, we've certainly felt this pandemic, and a lot of folks in our industry have felt a lot of pain. And so I think we do want to kind of share the rest of that story.
When the shutdowns began in mid-March, there was a lot of unknowns. And one of the most important things was trying to understand who was going to be allowed to remain open. So we, along with, I believe, NBWA and a lot of other organizations in town, engaged the federal government on their essential designation guidance, and worked with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Administration to ensure that the supply chain was included in part of the essential designations.
Each state obviously has control, and even a lot of local jurisdictions have control about, who can sell what, when, and how. And as a result of this pandemic, we've seen a lot of, relief efforts at the state level. I would say primarily what we've seen is the sort of retail to consumer transaction, whatever orders could be put into place to help these terribly impacted bars and restaurants. You see here, curbside pickup, to-go sales of, beer, wine, cocktails.
As we go forward, as I said, we're working to try and help our restaurant partners get back on their feet. We have a provision that we're working on at the federal level and trying to let us write off all that bad debt that I mentioned earlier. That'll be very helpful because it means that we will be able to move forward and help new restaurants get back on their feet by really focusing on what's coming in the future.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you walk out of this and I love that I feel so much better about the people I've worked for the last 19 years. Everybody's life changed in March, and not seeing just our guys, keep rolling trucks and delivering beer, but seeing everything they've done in their communities has reinvigorated us, even at the staff level.
It's a pleasure to be speaking with Robert on, I think, an issue that is critical for all of us, and that I believe has received some more sustained spotlight over the last few months, given that I think most folks were just so used to walking into a restaurant or a store and finding food on a shelf, and suddenly there were some limitations there. So I appreciate ACYPL taking the opportunity to talk about this and get a discussion going.
Independent restaurants account for about $760 billion worth of sales a year. And about 90% of that revenue goes directly to paying for employees and the suppliers and the landlords who own the buildings, which means that about 65% of all of that economic impact recirculates back in those communities. So that's why these independent restaurants are truly anchors in these communities and why it's been so devastating. In all, restaurants account for about 4% of the GDP of the United States. So this was a huge impact. And we know that because nearly 1 in 4 of all the people who lost their jobs during the pandemic and the closure, 1 in 4 were restaurant workers.
What I'm seeing on the production side of things very much lines up with a lot of what Robert's outlined, and it makes a lot of sense because it's all interconnected. We can produce as much food as we want, but if there aren't people to purchase that food, then there's not really a lot of other places for it to go. I think most people are a little disconnected in the sense that I think they assume that most of the food that gets produced flows into the retail chain. You'll hear me reference today, because my major point of experience is in the potato industry. A significant amount of what gets produced in agriculture goes into the commercial chain. So restaurants, schools.
And if you're a consumer sitting at home thinking, how can I be part of the solution? It is to join a CSA, it's to go to your farmers markets, it's to order food from local independent restaurants in your community and give them that lifeline that they need right now. And you may not get all of the products that you're used to getting, but at least what you're buying, buy as much as you can locally. My
encouragement for anyone who may be listening to this is don't panic. We are not going to run out of food. That's not the way our system is set up. But I would encourage everyone to be flexible themselves. If there's not the precise food that you're looking for at the grocery store, look for a substitute. You know, treat it as an opportunity to potentially try something that you haven't tried before with your families.